So John, we're here now to talk about bookkeeping and what you guys do. That and let's. What is bookkeeping? Just to really nail it down.
Yeah. So you have a book.
Yes.
And you keep it. You just lock it right on.
I figured that's
easy,
it,
right?
huh? But there's probably something that goes in that book.
Yeah, there are a few things. So bookkeeping is really just the keeping of the financial records of the company, right? That's in its simplest form.
Okay.
That's what bookkeeping is. Now it can evolve and it can take on additional roles, responsibilities. You can pay bills as the accountant, right? You can start writing checks and you can do a lot more. But just generally speaking, it's going to be keeping track of all of the debits and all of the credits.
Okay.
Things that are coming in, things that are going out. And making sure that those are all recorded.
And when you guys are asked to do that, so are you just an extension of the company? That they just don't want to hire a bookkeeper, and there's no reason. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we typically do, or what we try to do, is we will take, whether that's QuickBooks, whether it's some other software, we'll integrate with your bank account, with your credit card or credit cards, right, depending on the size of the entity.
Okay.
And we will work to track all of that. And so often that means a monthly bank reconciliation to ensure that everything that's hitting your bank account or bank accounts is being appropriately reflected in your books. That's the easiest way to kind of catch whether everything is being recorded, whether maybe we missed some expenses, maybe somehow we missed a deposit, something along those lines, and ensuring that what's happening inside the company itself mirrors economic reality, mirrors what's happening in the real world.
And you mentioned credit cards. So if I got a company, a bunch of sales guys are out there. I mean, all that you're keeping an eye on all that to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, so that's a really good question. Depending on the company and how granular they want to get, we can either keep track of everything holistically and say, okay, you have salespeople out all over the state. They all have $50 a day. Here's how much they're spending on meals. Here's the number for meals. Or we can break it down and say, here are all of your salespeople. Here's how much each of them is spending. Here's how much each of them has spent when they go out of town. So it really depends on just how granular of an approach you want to take.
So, and you're open to something just very simple, just basically keeping the numbers to getting down to kind of tracking and reporting on the numbers, I guess? Is that what it is?
We will go as granular as you would like us to.
That sounds like they could be, if you got some sales guys who are kind of a little sketchy,
the salespeople will be a little bit less excited, I think, about that than the company will be. Yeah, so I think for bookkeeping especially, the two biggest kind of asks that we get historically are going to be tracking cash, right? Especially if you're in a business where there's a ton of it. So restaurants where there's waiters and waitresses who are dealing in a lot of cash, laundromats, things along those lines where they're still very cash-oriented businesses, trying to kind of recreate those cash accounts and making sure that money isn't missing. That's a huge ask, right? Because again, we like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but the reality is if you don't have the appropriate kind of checks and balances in place,
you'll never know, right?
You'll never know. Yeah. And if it's there, everybody's human, right? There may be something going on at home, a handful of quarters, a few bucks here, a few bucks there, a few bucks here, a few bucks there, it adds up. And so all of a sudden, at the end of the year, you're going back and you're saying, we didn't, where are these hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars, right? And
it adds up, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
A numbers guy like you would know that. So to be clear, then you'll do bookkeeping for a small diner that has a very retail aspect, all the way to corporation type.
Absolutely. And actually, some of the things that we can do when we start looking at those small diners and start looking at those smaller companies, the first thing that we're going to look at is how do we get that money, right? How automated are we? Is there a way that we can kind of help automate to integrate with bookkeeping software so that process becomes less manual, right? The less manual that we have, the more automation we have, the less likely we have some sort of an error, right? Human beings by nature do make mistakes.
Sure.
So the fewer inputs we have that are manual, the more likely our books and records are to be accurate at the end of the year.
So you can actually bring ideas perhaps to the technology of really how they do something?
Yeah.
That's neat.
So bookkeeping is, it is what it is, right? The numbers are there. We make sure the debits and credits tie, and that's the biggest aspect, but we also are advisors, right? So as we're going through the numbers, we are then in a unique position to say, here are all of the things that we see. Here are the transactions that we see repeatedly, or here's the payroll processing fees, right? These fees seem like they might be a little bit higher than market. Let's maybe take a look if you guys are open to it. If you want to go down that path, either to automate or to bring in a transition and bring in a new vendor, we are in a much better position to kind of see what those financials look like and how they tie into the entity as a whole.
So anything from a very passive, we just keep the numbers together to, oh, we're going to get in there and be a little,
absolutely.
Sherlock Holmes. Where are you guys spending this stuff? Where's it going? That's nice to know. So
and it's some of the most powerful features in bookkeeping and QuickBooks, or if you're using even Excel, something like that, is the report feature. And so using those reports to glean information really helps to make sure that the company is going where the company wants to go. But as I've used many times in my life, garbage in, garbage out. So if we're using an inaccurate set of financial records or books to kind of model these reports, the likelihood is we're making decisions that are going to be suboptimal. So making sure that we're getting those books as accurate as possible, hugely important, and can really help kind of propel companies to the next level.